Watch this.
Idaho's revenue projection numbers fell short, but is it cause for concerns? We talked to the governor's budget chief to find out if a financial storm is coming or if this is business as usual. Cursive is making a comeback in Idaho classrooms by law, but not everyone's on board with the script. Plus, we're breaking down 6 other new laws set to hit the books July 1st, from glam squads to UTVs. A downtown McCall business just took down 200 water skis from their roof, again. Why the city says they've got to go, and what the owner hopes to do next. An economic report and budget memo about Idaho's revenue outlook generated questions last week. Questions that we took to political leaders on the red and blue teams for perspective on. The report shows that Idaho's general revenue collections are below projections, paired with direction from the governor's budget's office to state agencies. What would budget cuts look like at a few different levels, hypothetically? Now, some see this as a sign of problems on the horizon. Others say that projections fall short sometimes, and Idaho is positioned just fine, business as usual. Well, we spoke with the governor's budget director today about the projections, memo on potential holdbacks, and if she's concerned about the state of Idaho's economic future. A state budget report filed at the end of May shows Idaho's projected revenue collections, that's money that comes into the state, it's $141 million below the target set by lawmakers. The report, paired with a memo from the governor's budget chief, has created questions about cuts in Idaho's financial position.
Is there concern, I guess, about the economy here in Idaho and budget projections?
No, I mean, we go through this process every year. There's no panic here. We're trying to be prepared. We're trying to understand exactly where we're at from both a revenue and a spending standpoint, and be prepared to make the best decisions we can when we submit the budget next year.
Lori Wolf is the administrator of the Division of Financial Management. She wrote the late May memo that prompted some to have a conversation.
This is very normal. Every year, try to get it out by the 1st of June. We send out what we call a budget framework to give agencies guidance on kind of where we are revenue-wise, what we're looking for in terms of budgets.
Wolf explains there is nuance in different budget projections in play. One set by Idaho lawmakers in the budgeting committee and one set by a staff economist.
Legislature increased our revenue number by an additional $50 million for fiscal year 25. So they increased that. We kept our baseline at our projection that we track. So we're just under $100 million short of our revenue projections, which is just under 2%, so still pretty good.
With that said, there is still a shortage on the projection, but Wolf says there are strong metrics and context to factor in.
Growth in revenue in both sales tax and in income. We saw about a 6% increase in withholdings, which shows strong wages and strong earnings still in households. So from an economic standpoint, we're not concerned. From a budget standpoint, we just want to make sure that we're in alignment with what the revenues are that we as a government can spend.
In the spirit of that concept, Wolf's memo asked agencies to internally prepare budget holdback scenarios of 2%, 4%, and 6%.
How would you describe what was written and kind of the activity that was assigned to agencies?
Yes, we did not ask any agencies to submit rescissions in their budget or to cut any funding for fiscal year 26 or 27. We've had years and years of record revenue growth and a huge influx of federal spending that is also, could change. So we're still watching to see what's going to happen at the federal level with the big, beautiful bill. There may be some impacts on state budgets with that, and we need to be ready for that. But really, it's kind of a reset and a prioritization for agencies. They're not huge cuts, and we have not asked them to submit it with their budgets. We've just asked them to be prepared.
The biggest slice of the budget pie in Idaho is education. So when conversations about cuts are floated, there can be concerns that public education could take a hit. But Wolf adds a key piece of context to the budget memo.
That memo went to only executive agencies. The Department of Education is under Superintendent Critchfield, and they do not receive that memo. So part of that memo was not asking public schools to do holdbacks. We will be looking at opportunities of where we need to invest in education, and depending on revenue, that will be the place that we're looking first.
From Wolf's perspective, the conversation is similar to one that an Idaho family may have at their dining room table.
It's really easy to just spend what you get, and sometimes you have to take a step back and think about, are we spending it on the right things? So that's the exercise. After 4 years of record revenue growth and influx of federal spending, we're starting to normalize that federal money isn't coming in, and what we're really asking agencies is what really matters and where are our priorities.
And there's been some comments that the projection coming up short is because of $400 million in tax cuts that the Idaho legislature passed this past session. The governor originally said he wanted $100 million. Lawmakers went to about $400 million. Well, Administrator Wolf tells me that those cuts were already anticipated and budgeted for during the 25 session. The tax cuts are set to go into effect in fiscal year 2026, so in a few weeks. So she was very clear when I asked that the tax cuts are not the reason for the current revenue projection coming up short, but it is something they monitor heading into future fiscal years. If you're the kind of person who likes to mark your calendar, you might want to circle the beginning of the fiscal year. That's July 1st. That's when a slate of new laws hit the books here in the Gem State. Some deal with your kids, some deals with your car, some deals with cursive. Hunter Funk walks us through what's changing, what's staying, and what you should know before July.
Long before we had texts and tweets, we had the twist and turn of cursive letters. And come July 1st, Idaho schools won't just teach cursive, they'll have to make sure students are proficient in it by 5th grade.
There's several reasons. One is security. A signature is like your fingerprint. It's essential for legal and financial documents. There's cognitive benefits. It boosts brain development. It helps with literacy and fine motor skills. It helps children with dyslexia and other learning disabilities.
Not everyone was sold on the script. Senator Kevin Cook says most kids are signing things digitally now. And to him, cursive belongs more in calligraphy class than in curriculum.
I'm not excited about making this a required proficiency at this point. I just think we move forward and we lose some stuff, but hopefully we still have some specialized people that love that will always be concerned about writing that.
But now it's the law. From pencils to prisons, another law sparking far more controversy, House Bill 264. It expands Idaho's transgender bathroom law, extending it from K-12 schools to include universities, women's shelters, and even women's prisons.
We have made it illegal for a young woman to invite a young man over to her dorm room.
We just heard that we're chasing down these culture war issues. I don't believe we're chasing them down. I think bills like this, we're actually pushing back.
So this is about protecting girls and women. And it's hard to tell sometimes if somebody is a man or a woman. And that, therefore, the purpose of the bill is stated to protect women, but now you're potentially opening the door to harass.
The law requires those public spaces to label restrooms, changing rooms, and sleeping areas as male or female, based solely on biological sex. It sparked a protest in April after the governor signed it into law.
264 has got to go!
Meanwhile, House Bill 122 will lift the licensing requirements for glamour and makeover photographers who offer makeup or hairstyling services. Idaho is one of just 2 states still regulating these studios, like full-service salons. Now they can go ahead and glam up your shoot without a cosmetology license. Another change, this one goes off-roading. Kids under 18 no longer have to wear a helmet if they're in a UTV with seatbelts and a roll cage. But kids 16 and under do have to buckle up while the UTV's moving or risk a $50 ticket. Back on the road, this law is for teens, or anyone who just got their learner's permit. They've now got double the time to practice. Instruction permits and motorcycle permits will now last a full year instead of just 6 months. And for all drivers, you now get a little bit more breathing room on the road. Current law states you can exceed the speed limit on a 2-lane road to 15 miles per hour, but excludes passing lanes. So, come July 1st, it now applies in designated passing lanes outside of the city limits. Just don't forget to slow back down once you've passed. And one final law takes aim at Idaho's stance on marijuana. House Bill 7 puts a mandatory minimum fine of $300 on first-time offenders caught with 3 ounces or more.
If we don't have a tough on crime posture, we can assure our public that in due time, we will end up like California, Oregon, and Washington.
Police will still have discretion, prosecutors will still have discretion, but the discretion of a fine is pulled away from the judges because they have to mandate a minimum.
Opponents argue it ties the hands of judges, while supporters say it's another way to hold the line on drug use in Idaho. 7 new laws, some small, some sweeping, but all go into effect July 1st. Easy to say it was a busy year in the Idaho legislature, and summer is also busy for most people, so always a good reminder of what will take effect this season.
Yeah, it's easy for us to do our daily reports here on the legislature on proposed ideas, but it's, I think, great to circle back and say what actually goes into effect. I know, too, that there are other laws that people are curious about. Some things go into effect previously because of an emergency clause.
Yep. I was going to say some of those, if they write them in, and you've seen this a million times before, but yeah, they immediately go into effect. There's others that wait until January. It just kind of depends on the time of year.
And sometimes there are laws that are written as if this, then then. Remember the Dobbs decision, of course. Idaho had their abortion laws on the books for years, and then the Supreme Court had actually triggered that quite some time later. So some legislative intricacy there. Of course, this will be available later at ktvb.com. If you're curious what goes into effect on July 1st, of course, those tax cuts too, Hunter.
Yep.
We will see what the budget future looks like here in Idaho.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take a break. We'll be right back. They're up, they're down, they're up again, they're down again. Depends on the day. Kind of like a game of whack-a-mole, except with water skis and a city code violation in McCall. Earlier this year, we told you about a downtown McCall business that lined their roof with 200 water skis. Maybe you've seen it. City says that the display violated a code, so those skis needed to come down. And Aspen Shumpert has been following this story. Aspen, this is not the first time the skis have had to come down. I guess, what's the latest on this?
Right, this is actually the second time, and that's because the city and this business owner have been going back and forth on this issue for now almost 2 years. Laketown Clothing Company owner Cade Huskinson first installed the display back in the summer of 2023. He called it a tribute to McCall's lakeside spirit, but he quickly learned the display violated city design standards that require both natural and neutral materials on buildings. Huskinson took the skis down early 2024, but he hoped he'd be able to put them back up soon, as city council members previously voiced, entertaining a design code change. After 18 months and no changes, Huskinson put the skis back up last month. But since the skis are still in violation of city code, city staff sent Huskinson a letter that if the skis remained up, he'd be facing a $1,000 daily fine.
The reason I took them down is because I can't take that. penalty. I was hoping that maybe we could work with the city. I asked the city if I could keep them up temporarily while code was being talked about, because I originally took them down under the assumption that this was going to be talked about and that they could come back one day. It just doesn't seem to be the case.
The skis needed to be down by today, so Huskinson spent 6 hours taking them down, all 200 water skis on Saturday. Some people walking by telling Huskinson they wished he wasn't having to take them down once again.
It does add a certain attraction and brightness and uniqueness to McCall, and I think that's why people fall in love with McCall, is because it's unique and it's a mountain town with ski heritage. And it feels like, as I was taking the skis down, it was symbolic of McCall losing that a little bit.
The rooftop is now bare again. As for Huskinson, he's back to waiting and hoping the city will eventually find a way to balance its codes with the community's desires for a unique local flavor. But he says he is not optimistic. The city says it still plans to review its design standards during a comprehensive plan update in the upcoming fiscal year, but there's no specific timeline, Joe, for when those changes might occur.
Did he say it was 6 hours he was up taking those down?
6 hours, yeah.
Wow, so between that, putting them up and down,
Yeah.
he spent almost a full day doing it.
Yep.
Okay.
And he wants to do it.
He likes to do it.
Yeah.
Nobody told him that he had to do it in terms of putting them back up.
Correct.
My question is, where do all the water skis go in the meantime?
I actually do know the answer to this because I was up there for the original story, and they have a little shed next to the business where they stored hundreds of water skis. Their family has collected them over the years. So I know they're going back in the shed, maybe going back up on the roof one day if the city decides to change its code.
I wonder if, like skis, you can make a chair out of them.
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay. Aspen Chumpert, we will stay on top of that story. Thank you so much.
After a cool and a little bit wet of a start to the summer season, we will have a warmer week ahead of us this week. However, some shortwave troughs will bring us some impacts. In other words, we could have a little bit of instability, some minor disturbances to our week, but we're looking at mostly just clouds rolling through, some periods of breezy conditions, possibly a spot shower in the mountains or the valleys, but not a super high chance looking like at this point. Now we have an interesting setup right now. There's a lot going on our satellite and radar. You can see that there is some low pressure happening to the south of us, high pressure off to the west, which will make its way to us in about a week or so. But right here in our region, we have a little bit of a dip in the jet stream. Now, it's not a super well-defined low pressure system, but that dip in the jet stream is what's going to bring us those minor impacts. Right now, we're still a few degrees below average today, 70s in the Treasure Valley, low 70s in the Magic Valley, 60s in the mountains, which is pretty seasonable, but we did have a very cold start to the day today. Some spots in the Treasure Valley saw 40s. Mountain Home even started the day at 38 degrees. Stanley and McCall were either at freezing or right below it, so a very cold start to the day. This afternoon doesn't look like a lot of chance for storm activity in our area. However, if we jump to tomorrow, you can see parts of south central Idaho have a chance at seeing non-severe storms all the way down to the Nevada border. If we look up closely at our futurecast, there could be a sprinkle shower or two tonight in the mountains, but it looks like tomorrow night, Tuesday afternoon, we have a little bit of a better chance of seeing some showers roll through in the central mountains as well as the Owyhees. Most other spots in the region are going to see that cloud coverage for our moisture and instability in the atmosphere. Tomorrow we will be warmer into the upper 80s in the Treasure Valley, so we'll be a little bit above average temperatures at this point. Magic Valley in the low 80s and mountains in the 70s for the most part. We should stay between the upper 80s, low 90s for this work week. Wednesday should be the warmest day in the short-term period. Now looking to next weekend, Sunday, we have a ridge of high pressure finally starting to build in for summer. We're going to be into the mid 90s. Next week, we're looking at approaching triple digits once again.
All right. What a first week of summer. Thanks, Adrielle. One person is in custody after a high-speed chase across Boise and Meridian yesterday. Firefighters, by the way, also making progress on a wildfire burning near Stanley. Lots to go on here in the 208. Abby Wilt's got the 411.
A wild chase ended in a standoff and arrest in Meridian yesterday. Ada County deputies say 43-year-old Thomas Steinen refused to pull over near Lake Hazel Road, then led officers on a dangerous pursuit, even driving the wrong way on I-84 for 7 miles. He eventually crashed through a fence near Topgolf and ran into a barn in the Rolling Hills neighborhood. Neighbors got a code red alert and one called police after spotting him. After a brief standoff, Steinen surrendered. He now faces multiple charges, including aggravated battery and unlawful entry. After a weekend of cool weather and snow, the Joe's Gulch fire north of Stanley is now 50% contained. Between 1 and 3 inches of snow fell in the fire area over the weekend. The U.S. Forest Service says the weather assisted firefighters as they make progress to contain the fire. The fire ignited Thursday and has burned approximately 42 acres. The cause of the fire is under investigation. The Forest Service is asking the public to avoid the area to give crews room to work. The River District officially broke ground today. It's a 10.3-acre site in Garden City next to Whitewater Park. CWI will hold programs like computer science, cybersecurity, and business at the location and serve over 31,000 students. 220 townhouses and apartments, 20,000 square feet of retail space, and a 640-stall parking structure will also be at the River District. There will also be a new 125-room Hilton Hotel and a wellness clinic. CWI leadership, elected officials, and stakeholders gathered today to celebrate the groundbreaking. They say as Idaho is growing, this site will bring more jobs and more students to town to accommodate and keep up with growing Idaho. The River District is set to be completed in fall of 2027. And that's the 411 on the 208. I'm Abby Wilt.
All right, take a look at some of your comments to end our Monday edition of the 208. This one from Joe Ford. He writes, I can't believe what our legislature and school officials bother to spend time with. Cursive writing, who cares? That is certainly one perspective there. I know there are others that think it is a valuable part of culture, but Joe Ford, he's not the only one that I've seen with that opinion. Tom in Boise writes, after the kids learn cursive, they can teach them how to use a dial-up phone. I'm also curious how many of the kids these days would know what a rotary phone looks like, how to use it. Not as simple as it looks. All right, final comment of the day. Steve writes, the McCall City Council should allow the business up there to put up snow skis in the winter and water skis during the summer to advertise not only the business, but the activities in McCall. We will see when the City Council meets if they will change their planning and zoning code. For now, though, the skis are down and the 208 is wrapped up for Monday. See you tomorrow.
Continue with us and watch free now on the KTVB Plus app everywhere you stream.